If you think muscles and world-class weightlifting is cool, you might want to check out this Winning Wellness episode.
For the longest time, that's why when people recruit for sports, you look for multiple sport athletes because you get an overall development and not just a one trick pony. If you have a training day and it's like a heavy day and somebody comes in and is like, Coach, like my whoop says I'm at 38%. Can I not do this heavy day? Like, no. Like, you still got to do this heavy day, but scale it to what is realistic for that day. You may be a little bit more fatigued, but that's why we go off RPE. Like, it's not gonna tell you when not to push and to push. The goal is to go there and compete and win, not necessarily go there to hit PRs.
Welcome to the Winning Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Schwartzman. I'm a family man, a coach, a wannabe athlete. After earning 3 master's degrees and countless certifications, I've decided that podcasting is how I'm going to continue my education in all things wellness, longevity, and performance. Join me to learn along.
What happened this year at Nationals? Did you guys just go in and win everything? What's going on Olympic lifting wise over at Lindenwood?
Yeah, dude, we kind of walked away with it this year, dude. It's the way weightlifting works is, so there used to be 10 weight categories in guys and girls. So you have 10 for guys and 10 for girls. But now there's 8. So you bring a team of 8 girls and 8 guys, and then you have a co-ed team that are like your dogs that are on your men's and your women's team. And your best athletes go to the co-ed, and then you compete against other universities. So
Is Coed also 8?
yeah, 8. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to have, I think it's at least 2. You can't have it all guys. You have to have at least 2 of the opposite sex. So you could do like 6 guys and 2 girls, or 4 and 4. And co-ed guys and girls, you can only have the same weight class for 2 people. So if you can't have like 5 60 kg weightlifters for males, you can only do 2. And then from there, you could do 8 of 4 weight classes, because then that'll fit 2 in each weight class and go up. So it's not like you have to have 1 for each weight class, but you can't just like load it up with all the same weight class.
What
Yeah, so it's kind of like wrestling.
wait a second. If you're facing another university and they have a female in this weight class and you have a male in that weight class, they're not going male versus female, are they?
No.
How do they do that?
The weight classes are different. They're like minutely different for like guys and girls. So
Okay.
there's 8 weight classes for girls that are different than the 8 weight classes for guys. No,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
there's no like battle of the sexes kind of thing going on.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah. So for the first time in my program's history, we won all 3, dude. We the so including this year and 3 years previous, we've won Coed 4 years in a row, which that's the most important one. That's the one where if you win, you say you're a national champion. So this was our 4th year doing that, but there was always like, we'd win co-ed, but we'd lose to men's and women's to get 2nd or 3rd or 4th, or we'd win men's and co-ed, but not women's. So it was, we kind of went for the trifecta this year, and we walked away with it, dude. It was a 4-day meet, and just kind of the way it worked is my athletes were stacked to the heavy weight classes. So lighter weight classes always go first, then to like the middle size, then finally to the heavyweights. So different teams, you might have most of your dogs in the middle or the beginning, or we're kind of at the end. And it's kind of a good thing and it's kind of a bad thing, pros and cons, because if you're stacked at the end, like you have a really good cleanup hitter, but if the heavies always have to close it down. So they always have to finish it off. So they're the ones that know the most data because the meat is already gone for 3 days. So everybody knows what position they're in at the end, and it's kind of all on their shoulders.
Yeah.
But but the pro is that we know what we have to do. So kind of in the same breath, the good thing is that we know what we have to do, but the bad thing is we know what we have to do. So in the beginning, the first 2 days, there was a couple of teams that we were kind of neck and neck with. And we were kind of like, whoa, like, okay, like we're really going to have to kind of climb and fight for this, which is what you want. But as the week went on, or the 4 days went on, we kind of just kept getting better. And those other teams that were 3 or 4 teams that were right there with us, they kind of started falling off. Couple of big teams had bomb outs where if you have a bomb out, that basically means so you get 3 attempts at snatch and 3 for clean and jerk. But if you don't hit one of the 3, so if I don't make one snatch, I bomb out. So
Yeah.
I don't total and my points don't go to my team. So those other teams that we were against had some real heavy hitters that didn't post a total. So they didn't score points to their team. So it was it was kind of crazy. We were kind of pushed there in the beginning, and we kept getting better, and the other ones just kind of trickled off. So it was a pretty convincing win, man. It was great.
Is that do you think that you are, when you look back, maybe what's your philosophy on that opener? You want something that you're no doubt going to get your hands on and succeed with, and or how aggressive do other coaches and other programs like to be a little bit more aggressive? Is that why they bombed out, or is it just one of those things that just happens?
Mixed bag of worms, a little bit of both. I wouldn't say I'm conservative on my openers, but your opener should be a weight that you can really hit on your worst day. You don't win with your opener. You win with your third attempt. So if I think a lot of people like to open aggressively. Here's the 2 thoughts. If you open aggressively and you make that opener, you get 2 more shots at like this pie in the sky lift. Where like very generally speaking, your opener is about 90 to 93%, depending on what type of athlete you are. But if I open at 95, 96, and I make it, now I have my second and my third attempt to go for like 100 or 101 or 102%, and then maybe again.
Yeah.
I'm on the opposite side of that scale where you just in my experience, you don't just magically arrive at those numbers. And if I open up with something that I know I can hit, that builds confidence going into my second and my third. Because then it's like if you and I are going against each other, and let's say I open before you, we're in the same weight class, and relatively our numbers are the same. If I open before you and I post a lift and you follow me, you may feel good about following me because you're always going to have that attempt after me. But if you miss, now you haven't posted a lift and you only get 2 more tries. Now, I have posted a lift, so I can kind of push you and make you climb with me. And now you've already had 1 miss, and now you're going heavier, and you haven't posted a total yet. So now kind of the pressure like really shifts. So even if both athletes, if I open lighter and I hit it, and you open a little heavier and you hit it, it's still going to come down to our third attempt.
Yeah.
So you going 1 for 3 is not nearly as good as going 3 for 3 because that shows that you're real with yourself. Like you're realistic on what you can do.
Yeah.
And you build a load of confidence when you're hitting lifts and you're like gaming, the people that you're against. Like that's hard to mimic, and that's hard for somebody to come in and beat you. When you're smoking warm-ups in the back and you're like confident in your openers, like the dog comes out real fast.
Yeah, that reminds me. There's a saying. This isn't going to be spot on, but you don't rise to the level of your expectation. You fall to the level of your training.
That's good.
Like,
I love sayings like that, but what is that again? Say it again.
I don't think I'm saying it right, but I will. You do not rise to the level of your expectation. You fall to the level of your training.
It's good, man.
Is that, you know what? I want people to come in and be hopeful and aggressive and like go for their pie in the sky lifts. And I want to be the person that comes in and like, hey, I know what I've been doing. I've been training. Here's what I know I'm going to execute.
Yeah.
And just I like operating from there.
Yeah. And that's good.
You won't always get those like fairy tale like PRs. But instead of like hoping and crossing your fingers on competition day, just bust your butt for the year leading up to it. And that's what you get what you earn.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said on that too, because like if you come in and it's like if you're hoping for this pie in the sky lift, the worst case scenario is that it actually works and you do it, because then everybody always tries to recreate that and it never happens again. It's one thing if like, oh, me and Mitch are going back to back and you're pushing me and I'm pushing you and you're pushing me and we're both riding to the occasion, and then all of a sudden like you beat me by 1 kilo, yeah, and that's awesome. But if you're just going in with the mindset of kind of making that be the game without it actually being the game, like you're doing it the hard way. The goal is to go there and compete and win, not necessarily go there to hit PRs. Like
Yeah.
PRs is for the training hall, where if you hit more PRs in training, you earn the right to push more at competition because your trainings go so well. So it kind of falls back to what you said about, you fall to your training. So if you've done well in training, I mean, it's not 100%, but you're probably going to do well at the meet. But if you're always just swinging for the fences, not every swing in baseball is going to be a home run. Like you got to kind of adapt. Like
I will. Have you ever had a lifter that refuses to like face reality and they just fail all the time? They're like, I know I can snatch 100K or whatever it is. I picked up a term for that. I was actually at Lindenwood working on a counseling master's degree, and I picked up a term for that. I'm going to say it slowly and clearly.
Okay.
They are a musturbator. It's that they, in their head, I must be able to lift this because my friends can bench press 225. My friends can bench press 315. So every time coach turns his back, I'm going to put that weight on the bar and I'm going to go for it. And what happens is that musturbator will set themselves back. They could have been training successfully for months or for years even, but they get so fixated on I will admit, I still like the look of like 2 or 3 plates on the end of a bar for a lift, or 4 plates, or that next plate is an awesome feeling when you're able to get that. But for those musturbators, they set themselves back.
I see why you slowed that word down. I was wondering what you were getting at, but I got you now.
Yeah, in the counseling world, they look at it like for a person who envisions like exactly how something is going to go, like the day at work, or maybe somebody's going through a drive-through at a fast food place or whatever, and something doesn't go according to plan, and they can't be emotionally flexible. They had what they wanted to happen, and anything else is less than acceptable.
Yeah, they have rails put up like when you're bowling, like and if the rails go down, it's like
Yeah.
chaos.
Yeah.
Um, it's so interesting because I don't say you get a lot of those, but you do get those in weightlifting. And for something that is such an objective sport, like sometimes people are just brain damaged. Like in
Well,
in wrestling, if we're wrestling, and let's say you're far better than I am, there may be a chance that I can pick an ankle, or I might, I might be going up against Randy Johnson. I might be able to catch him. He might get a little loosey, and I might be able to at least foul one off. But objectively, like if you're my athlete and you've never hit a number, like I know you can't hit that number because you've never hit that number. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
if you're set up right, obviously you're going to hit PRs, but kind of like you were talking about the musturbator is like you've tried snatching 100 kgs 30 times in the past month and you've made it zero. So why do you think you can do that now? Like if you're, let's say again, I love comparisons. You and I are both trying to snatch 100 and we're both at 95. And I just always try to keep putting 100 on the bar, but I'm missing left and right. But leading up to the meet, if you're like, well, I'm going to do 96 and I'm going to do 97 and I'm going to make it majority of the times. And then the next week, I'm going to come back down a little bit. And the week after that, I'm going to go up to like 97, 98, and I'm going to nail it. And then I'm going to come back down. And now I've like waved my way up to actually being real because it's like, well, no, your approach is right because you're slowly like gaining speed with quality reps. Me, the idiot that just keeps putting it on the bar, I'm not learning anything. I'm just learning how to miss, so that is very common in weightlifting. Honestly, I try not to get those people, but I mess up. I get them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take those, mostly guys, take those guys by the shoulder and I just walk them over. I'm like, hey man, don't be a musturbator.
I'm probably going to pull that from you. I love that stupid thing, so I'm going to steal that from you. I'm telling you right now.
I mean, yeah, please do. But that along with some of the autoregulation that happens, and you were talking about wrestling. When I started working with wrestling, somewhere around like 9 years ago, I was programming for them with percentages, just like I had done with football for a handful of years prior to that. And then one day they came in and they were all weak and grumpy. I'm like, what is going on? Well, it was like time to do their weight qualifications or weight certifications. And so everybody's like started cutting weight. And so I was like, you mean to tell me all these charts that I've been like obsessing about for the last like 8 years? Like you just set it on fire.
Just tear it in front of them.
So with them, because I had what you'd call like a menu, like an exercise menu where your back squat relates to, 80% of your front squat, which relates to 45% of your rear foot elevated squat. I mean, all these other things that just translate over based on some primary motions, but you could move up, down, around, and relate it to a lot of other stuff. When those wrestlers came in, they were all hungry and grumpy. I was just like, well, now we got to do reps in reserve. And so we started doing reps in reserve. and it worked well for them. It kept them happy because they were still training hard. But gosh, I had one guy who came in lean at like 210 and then wrestled at like 165, and he got absurdly jacked over the summer and fat. He
Yeah.
was fat and happy even though he wasn't fat. And then he had a weight class to wrestle at. That was his spot on the team. And so he wanted to keep training hard, but he could not touch those numbers that he just
Yeah.
had built up to.
That is a really grumpy guy. He was the grumpiest, I bet.
Man, he was actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
But talking to you, and I'd love to hear more about your system, and maybe this relates a little bit to competition times as well. You and I were having like a brief conversation on this years ago, and you were talking about like windows of like acceptable training for the day. Do you want to talk a little bit about like how free you are with your programming, or like kind of maybe like a little bit of a rundown with that?
Yeah. You're especially with the Olympic lifts. Let me back up a little bit. The more seasoned weightlifter that has a good approach, has a good mindset, has a good understanding, will have a greater window as to where like they can range between further than like, what the program says, 85%, celebrate it a little bit if it's there and you're confident there, but pull back if it's never going to be there. You know what I mean? So your beginner lifter can hold a little bit more to big concise do this kind of thing, as long as your percentages aren't crazy. If it's a balance, honestly, because if you're a beginner lifter, and the more beginner you are, not just with me, but in the sport, maybe haven't qualified for big meets, I'll give you less of a range and more of a very target, concise percentage. But those are always scaled back a little bit, where it's not like your concise percentage is where you're going to have to be reaching a lot. There's going to be times when I'm going to let you reach a little bit more, but it's also empowering to a newer lifter to be like, okay, coach wants me to try to do 80% for doubles, but these past couple of weeks, like I've been killing it at 80%. So I'm going to go up and can I go up to 83 because you've seen me the past 2 weeks and I'm destroying it? Yeah, then let's talk about it. Like you've kind of earned that ability to like go up. But my vets who have like a very good approach and understanding to kind of how training works, they have more of a window where it's kind of like the RPE method where in my world, I've kind of attached uh a movement quality to kind of the RPE scale of like 1 to 10, where like 7 is like the heaviest you can go with it looking like very pretty, like chef kiss. 6, 5, 4 is anything below that, and anything 3, 2, and 1 is typically like a warm up. 8 is like a good lift, but like one minor thing might fall off. You might catch a lift, and as you're standing up, you might step a little forward, or positioning might be out a little bit. 9 is like two minor things fall off, or one big thing. And then 10 is like, give me what you got, make the lift. Majority of my programs probably exist around the 5 to 8 area for like a beginner more. So they have a little bit of cushion to be able to be like, oh, like coach is telling me to go for an 8. One, they don't really understand what an 8 is because they're not seasoned enough to know like what an 8 feels like. But an advanced lifter might have like a 6 to 9 scale because they can regulate better and they know what a 9 or an 8 or a 6 is comparatively. I usually attach percentages and RPEs, but I'm heavily on the RPE side, especially for the main movements more than I am than like a hard percentage. Like there's never going to be, no matter how good, bad, or new you are to weightlifting, like there's never going to be a time when an athlete's going to come up to me and be like, Coach, I can't hit 85%. And I'm going to go, no, you have to. Like, I'm not that like dogmatic kind of thing. It's going to be like okay, then we're going to adjust to what we can do. And then usually it's like, what does the RPE call for today? So you may not be able to hit 85, but your body, I don't think, can tell the difference between 85 to 75%. Your body can only tell how hard you're pushing. So if you're doing a 7, but the program says your 7 should be at 85%, but you're already at a 7 back here at 70%, then we just work here. Like there's no like little calculator monitor on your shoulder that says, technically you're not at 85%. Like the body doesn't know. The body just knows how hard you're pushing. So
Yeah.
I know that was a long way to kind of answer your question, but like that's kind of the difference between beginners and advanced and kind of how their approach is for that window anyways.
Okay, will you talk a little bit about, like, let's say I'm maybe like a 15-year-old who's interested in weightlifting, or I'm a 50-year-old who's interested in weightlifting and is like new to it, on the back end of athletics and things like that. Why can't you just prescribe percentages? Is it a you problem or is it a human factor?
I think it's a human factor thing because the body is an organism. It's not a robot. Like you don't know, you don't have a little meter that says you have this much battery left in your iPhone. And especially when you're dealing with other sports, like you can come in on a full charge, a half charge, a quarter, like you don't, there's so many things to being a human that have to go right for you to charge your battery fully. And sometimes those things are out of your control. I can sleep good, I can eat right, but I might have a test that I really have to crunch for, and I can't go to sleep. So I'm like, oh gosh, I got to get my 8 hours at least. Like I'm not going to put in a good day, but you just can't fall asleep. Like you have done everything you could to control those factors, but it still doesn't always work out. Like the stars don't always align. So the human aspect of specific percentages, I don't, it's not natural. In football, if I was warming you up for a 40-yard dash, I would say, okay, Mitch, I want you to do your first warm up at 40%. You're going to take off and you're going to go, oh, this kind of feels like 40%. I don't have a gun on you and say, this is technically your 35%. You got to go a little bit faster. You're just kind of feeling it out. And then I'm like, okay, Mitch, your next one is going to be 60%. Okay, well, to you, it's like 60% is a little bit faster, but I'm not really pushing the page yet. And then finally, whatever, 75 to 90 to then finally 100. You're in other sports, you're just feeling those out. You don't have like an objective measurement. And I think that's one of the things that like weightlifting kind of gets wrong is it's so objective on the weight on the bar versus chasing the feeling of the RPE. Like that's like the reality of being a human. And
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, unless you are a freaking robot, which there are people out there that need that hard number, but majority of the people just need to learn how to regulate within that range and what is realistic versus I have to hit 85% because why? Because I told you that you have to hit 85% today. Like, okay, who am I? I try to do my best and say this is what I want you to do, but what if you couldn't fall asleep? What if you forgot to eat dinner? What if your girlfriend just broke up with you? Like, there's so many variables that have to be perfect for you to be able to hit this like really hard percentage. And a lot of times it's not perfect, man. It's more about just getting through the day and giving your best for that day. Than
Yeah.
think it is hitting that percentage because coach subscribed it, like
And I think the philosophy varies, but my philosophy was more of the percentage is the percentage. That's what needs to be done. And then my philosophy now is that the percentage is kind of how it feels on your body because it's so complex. The organism, it's the stress on the organism, not the stress on the bar.
yeah.
And that really stood out to me one time. I was doing, I spent several years as like a card carrying West Side barbell fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, as you might know, as people might know, they do dynamic effort work. And your dynamic effort work kind of varies, but usually between 75 and 85% of your one rep max. And if possible, there's a variable intensity to that. And one day I went to do my dynamic effort sets. Might have been a 75% day, like week one of a 3-week wave.
Yeah.
And I barely got one rep. Like, and I felt fine, but I'm like, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
I just failed at a variable, and I almost just failed at a variable intensity single rep on 75%. So
Yeah.
I had like officially trained myself into the dirt.
Yeah. You had nothing. Your battery was zero,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. And you have an interesting group. Well, let's talk about one thing first. You have an interesting group. They're young, but they're see some of your lifters come in, and you can have this on the tennis team or the football team or whoever as well. But some of your lifters come in and they have training philosophies, and they've been under some pretty respectable coaches, and they live in there. The videos they watch that are weight room related and all this other stuff. So, but the crux of that, kind of a comment that would have been better for maybe our masturbator section a moment ago, is that some of those athletes, when you're 15, 16, and 17, you do just get stronger every time you go in the weight room, basically.
Yeah.
So that maxing out mindset where you just get stronger all the time, that's going to be tough to kind of curtail when they first get to you. Because it's tough for me. I'll talk to 19-year-olds, and it's weird to have that conversation because I'm like, an old ball guy now, but I'm like, hey, you're 19. You are no longer a 16-year-old. And
Yeah.
to listeners, they might say like, what's the difference? It's like, well, if you train, magic things happen from like 15 to 20, but you only get a few years of that magic. And if you
Yeah.
use that magic up from like 14 to 17 or 15 to 18, it kind of slows down big time. So I think I could see how a bunch of your lifters would come in and just be like, this is what I do and it makes me better. And it's tricky because, you might have a young man who thinks that his like bench press and bicep day for the last 4 years is the reason he grew 8 inches and gained 40 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, buddy, you're not like some training wizard. You just went through
Yeah.
puberty.
Yeah. I doubt that was the reason why you put on all that size.
So anyways, that was kind of like a little a back feed comment. But again, you have those young, new generation, intelligent, dialed in athletes. Do they come in with Garmin's or Apple Watches or the Aura rings? Do they pay attention to that? Is that like some of the chatter on your team is like, what's your like readiness level today?
Um,
And you don't have to, you can, that can be like a one word answer if it needs to
yeah.
be. You don't have
Yeah,
to,
yes, but not like the Apple Watch. Like the big thing is like the Whoop. Like I have a Whoop on right now. Um, or
how's that looking 3 weeks into your daughter's birth? How's your Whoop numbers?
not good in the red, 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 red. Red Dead Redemption. My athletes, and they love videos, and they love to see themselves perform. I Content is very important, so I do let them record kind of thing. But sometimes they get over obsessed of like analyzing it versus like feeling it. They want to see it. They'll do a lift and they immediately run to it. And I'm like, no, like that was a good lift. You felt good. Like trust that. Do like look at your training footage when you're at 9 p.m. tonight and you're falling asleep. Like don't let that like consume you that one rep. You You just did a rep at 60%. Like you don't need to like completely analyze, draw the lines of like where it is off your hips. Like relax. How did it feel? Um, Whoops are big, just to kind of like monitor readiness. And I do put emphasis on that, not necessarily it it simplifies it down and the Whoop does like a journal where it's like fill out your Whoop journal every time you wake up, and then it says, okay, majority of the days that you stay up past 10 p.m. shows a negative 11% on your readiness score. So it kind of highlights things that objectively gives you a number for how much better you're doing the next day. So it kind of shines some light on like stuff that you might think you're doing okay, you're not really doing okay. Like anytime you're like, do you eat enough protein? And they say, oh yeah, I eat enough protein. I'm like, well, how much protein do you eat? Are you doing 1.6 grams per kg of body weight? They're like, oh yeah, definitely. I'm like, okay, let's do a food journal. And they do a food journal and they're at like 70 grams. And I'm like, no, you ain't. You think you are, but you're not even close, dude. You got to like double that. And I think it just shines light on things. And the videos have their role too, just so like if they do a lift and like coach misses it, they can come up and show it and be like, what do you think about this? So it's not like it's not like I'm an old man, sitting on my lawn, like technology sucks and the Whoop sucks. Like they're tools that they do use, but it's not where like the bread and butter is. Another thing like about the Whoop is, if you have a training day and it's like a heavy day and somebody comes in and is like, coach, like my Whoop says I'm at 38%. Can I not do this heavy day? Like, no. Like you still got to do this heavy day, but scale it to what is realistic for that day. You may be a little bit more fatigued, but that's why we go off RPE. Like it's not gonna tell you when not to push and to push, so it's a tool in the tool belt, honestly.
When you kind of talk, I kind of like that mentality of like, no, you don't get a day off because your Whoop score stinks or whatever. I kind of like that mentality. I worked with the Rams in 2010, and their strength coach was Rock Gullickson. He was
That guy
jacked.
was destined to be a strength coach. If your name's Rock,
He was legit. He's legit. He's legit. He's a great guy, great strength coach, great lifter. Actually, was more of the powerlifting side, and spent several years being like the strongest guy in Montana, strongest guy in Wyoming, like back in the like 70s and 80s. But he's had a substantial amount of muscle on him still, very strong. When because he and I spent time together in 2010. So your technology is the emerging technology is infancy for a lot of this like auto-regulation and like checking the CNS state of the day. So do you remember crud, Joel Jameson was like a proponent for a device where it would show your CNS readiness for the day.
okay.
And I think it started Omega Wave. Yeah, that would have killed me. The Omega Wave. So at Mizzou in 2012, they've got this device called an Omega Wave. Maybe this was 2000, somewhere around 2012.
Yeah.
No, this is 2010 as well. So this is 2010 as well. It's the Omega Wave. It's a $70,000 product. They attach sensors to you here, in your ankles, and it checks on your nervous system, does whatever it does. Now it's, 16 years later, it's dialed down. You probably get very similar results for like $100, and then their app or whatever.
Yeah.
But these things are going around, and I think I had gone to a seminar and heard about it, and I'm talking to Coach Rock. I'm like, well, what about their nervous system? Shouldn't we check their nervous system and then like optimize their training per day? Because I heard somebody string those words together at a clinic, and as a 22-year-old strength coach, I'm like, I've got the solution.
Uh,
And he kind of like sits back and he thinks for a second. He's like, it's that guy's job to show up and be ready to train.
yeah.
And when you make his training easier, you reward the behavior that led him to not being ready to train.
Yeah.
It's like,
That's
so,
good.
and he said, so I'm not really interested in making his life easier because on game day, he's got to perform.
Yeah.
He can't show up and say that my CNS isn't ready. So he said, so he thought about it for a second, but he was just like, that's not, we're here to perform. We're here to be prepared.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, coach. I can't go into the game because my whoop score is below 50. I'm like, what? Like, no.
So that being basically the first conversation I ever had about neurological preparedness, it stayed with me. I mean, it stays with me to this day, is that, yeah, you don't want to be a maniac and push when it's clearly wrong. Like that one day that I tried to bench my dynamic effort weight and almost got pinned, like had to do like a 10 out of 10 just to get to the rack. There's a happy medium. It matters a little bit, but not too
It
much.
does. And I think it does. Like, I'm not necessarily knocking, like monitoring neural fatigue where whether it's jump height or a whoop or, just a daily like readiness questionnaire. But like you said, I think it's more to like highlight things you need to do to be better ready. But just because, you went out the night before and you had some drinks and you stayed up to 2 a.m., you don't get to go lighter now because you like didn't do what you were supposed to. Like you're still gonna do what you need to be doing. Again, you gotta manage expectations because you might not be able to hit those top numbers, but you're still gonna do it. There's also this weird thing in weightlifting that I don't know, man. I can't find like any papers or any people talk about it, but I don't know like what it is. But there are sometimes you gave the perfect example when you were coming in to do your dynamic bench press day. You said you felt fine. There will be days that people will come in that they're like, man, I feel great. And I'm like, cool. I bet you're going to do terrible. And majority of the time, they don't perform that well. But there are days that some people come and be like, man, I am dog water. And I'll be like, you're going to do fine. Especially when you're at a competition or you're peaking for a competition. If you're going into a peak and you're like, man, I feel great. I'm like, you're going to do terrible. I don't know what that is. The only thing I can like think of is it's that managing expectations thing where like kind of back to like the rail thing of bowling. Like if you already know that you're like, I got a speed lane to doing awesome today. Your expectation is already that you are going to do awesome and you haven't even done a dynamic warm up yet. So when you are set the bar that you're already going to do here and you're only here, which could be a good day, you're like, you start freaking out and then the wheels come off. But on the days that you come in and your expectation is like, I am struggling, your expectation is down here. And then you're like, crap, like I'm actually doing pretty good. Like that gives you kind of that mojo to like keep doing well. And I don't know if it's just that simple, but there is something in weightlifting that when you're feeling like the man, you're not going to do well. But when you're feeling like dog water, you'll be all right. I don't know what that is. If you have, I'm
I,
always like searching for that answer.
I have two, maybe three thoughts on that. One, is that totally, I have seen that as well. And not that I'm any kind of lifter, but I've experienced it as well.
Yeah.
It flies in the face of self-talk. and the importance of your inner monologue, as Austin Powers would say. But it flies in the face of that. But regardless, it's true. I've seen that as well. I was really lucky. I had a great high school strength coach by the name of Kevin Kinney. He and I had a little, and I'm pulling up a conversation right now from probably like 22 years ago. But
when the dinosaurs were on the earth.
That's right. But I was doing maybe a squat. It was he would focus on the bench, squat, and clean were kind of how he would spend his time with us. But I believe I squatted like my last warm up set, and I like kind of like squeaked it out. And I said, I like found him, or he was nearby, and I said, that I can't believe how hard that felt. And then later on that I was successful in creeping up and doing my next weight, but I follow up, I'm like, I can't believe that I got my top weight based on how I got my previous set. And he just said, he's like, a lot of people are thinking about their next set while they're doing their last warm-up set. Mm-hmm. And so I think on a day that you're feeling great, you're thinking about what you're going to do after the thing you're doing right now. Because I'm going to do more weight today. It's going to go well. And then on the days where you're like dog water, you're like, Lord, help me get this weight up. And so I think on the days you're feeling great, you might really feel great, but you're not dialed in when you need to be dialed in. On the days you feel like crap, you get hyper focused because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is going to kill me or ruin me, but I'm going to go for it. So yeah. I don't have an answer, but that's my guess.
Yeah.
The amount of focus that you sneak in when it's actually time to do something.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a good approach too. Like the inner dialogue and the monologue that you're like giving yourself coming in, you're just, that kind of is similar to like your expectations, but I like the focus aspect because I have to focus a lot so that I don't die. So like I better have all like cylinders firing versus like when I come in and I know I'm going to do great. I'm already thinking about 3 attempts down the road and I'm not like being where my feet are. One of my favorite sayings is be like a plant, like be where your roots are right now. Don't worry about what's happening outside of the weight room after training, like be here. So that kind of goes into that like philosophy of you're very present every single rep and not just thinking about your top sets. That's good.
So I think you're tired athletes on those days they're tired. I think they're kind of like Ricky Bobby and they're driving with the fear. Yeah. They've got a live cougar in the car with them.
Fear take the wheel, like.
I mean, so that's my guess, but
okay.
The complex human organism strikes again.
Yeah, it does. And I can't like fully figure that one out. And maybe I never will, but that's always one that kind of comes back around a lot. And I'm like, there's that thing again. Like there's so many anecdotal things that I've picked up in the coaching world that I don't know if there's any way to track it or measure it. Everything in the fitness industry is so like data, and data says this and data says this and data says that. But there are certain things anecdotally that you can't really measure. And that's like one of those things that like I don't know how to measure this or how to like put evidence towards this, but like I've seen this a lot. And like there's something to that, just kind of in the coaching world of like, your gut feeling or like just I don't think I need to know why this happens, but I do know that this happens.
Yeah.
And being able to like realize that, like I think we like to really dissect things and like there needs to be an objective number and you have to hit 87% and this is the macro cycle that works. Like instead of zooming in, like maybe zoom out of like, I don't know why this happens, but I've seen it 1,000 times that this happens. And again, I can't put like a data marker to those anecdotal things. I mean, that's why they're anecdotal, but you see those things a lot. And it's kind of funny. The more things that you gather, the longer you've been in the coaching industry or in my sport, you know.
Yeah. What do you? How many lifters you got on your team?
40.
Okay. If we take 40 athletes on your team and we ask them, are you a strength athlete or a power athlete?
Mm.
What are they going to say? And what are you going to say? How many of them are going to say they're strength athletes out of those 40? How many of them are going to say they're power athletes? What's your guess, and what do you say?
My guess, they're throwing that at me. I would guess the majority, 80, 75, 80% would probably say power athletes.
Okay.
I would say the others would say strength.
And what do you
I
say?
I say we're a power sport. But there's there's several different archetypes in weightlifting, and you see that a lot in sports. You got the strong guy or girl who just has this massive reservoir of strength, and everything snatch and clean and jerk is so submaximal compared to what he or she can hold. They can squat a house, but they can't snatch 40% of that. On the other side, you have somebody who, an extreme version is like a technician and is just like a sorcerer with the barbell. That's their magic wand where they are like so technical, but no matter how technical they don't have the strength to be able to hold that position or to squat it up or stand it up or stabilize it overhead. So, and then that's kind of like the polar extremes. Then there's people in between, with maybe just a snatch movement or the clean and jerk, or you always have, for the majority of the people, they have a movement that's kind of their bread and butter. They either squat, snatch, clean, or jerk. And one of those movements they just like have in the bank. And you kind of got to learn to program around those. Like if I have somebody who has a massive strength reserve, like pushing, pushing the needle more on their strength is not their key to success. Versus if I have a technician, pushing the needle on their technical side, it's not doing more technique. Like they need a different stimulus to be able to move the needle for them. So majority, that's kind of why I said majority of my athletes are probably more on the technical side, whereas like 20% of them are more kind of on the strength side, which I think we are a power sport because we move things with velocity, but the power equation is work over time. And work is distance times weight over time. So you can focus on the distance that you're traveling, the weight on the bar, and the speed at which you do it to become powerful. So even if you're a power athlete, like strength is still a component for sure.
So I asked that question because I'm familiar with Brian Mann.
Yeah, is it Minnesota?
He's down at Texas A&M now.
Okay.
Uh, Cal Dietz is at Minnesota.
Oh yeah, that's Chaldees. That's triphasic.
Which Cal Dietz does triphasic, and his writings, especially triphasic training, the book. I mean, if you read the first 5 pages in it, it will talk a lot about those relationships. How some athletes are like strength athletes, but they can only access this much power, and then some athletes are not quite as strong, but they can access a bunch of power. And so, anyways, if you read like the first 2 pages of triphasic, it it discusses kind of what we were just on there.
Okay.
Brian Mann had a research anecdote, I'll call it. He's working on his PhD at Mizzou, and he's looking for like a layup with his data, and like he had this like regression analysis he had to do, wherein he would take all of the tested metrics of the football players, and he'll find what weighted exercise has the greatest, or actually what of any of these data points has the greatest correlation to the vertical jump.
Okay.
And so if you're at Mizzou and you're training weightlifting and everything, and you're doing their strength training and you're performing weightlifting, things like that, they're doing weightlifting to drive the vertical jump, right?
Okay.
So he does the regression analysis. The numbers that get spit out do not align with what he anticipated. He does it again. He goes and finds his PhD advisor who's helping him out. He has them run the numbers, and the guy says, "No, you're correct. Your cleans are like the fifth highest correlate. Your bench press, your sprints, your body fat percentage, those are all, and maybe one other thing, are all greater correlates to your vertical jump than the cleans." And because of that, he goes back and they talk and they look at the programming, and they downgrade the intensity of a bunch of their cleans, because the clean is a weighted jump. If you agree, disagree, weighted jump.
Not fully, but yeah.
So but that's what they're looking for. But
Yeah.
they're performing it so heavy. Because at the time Gary Pinkel is their head coach at the time, and Gary Pinkel is he knows what numbers he wants from the weight room, and so that becomes a bigger part of what they're doing. But they find that if you look at the force velocity curve and you look at what's happening on neurologically, when you have a group that focuses on the PRs, on the high end weights of the cleans, it will actually not translate to your vertical jump as desired.
Yeah.
And so that's why I bring it up to you, and then maybe we can roll it in now. That's why if I'm having a team do cleans, I'm not chasing PRs on that, is because it's the most complicated motion in the weight room, and the higher end weights will not translate to their jumps as much as submaximal weights.
Yeah.
With that being said, are you guys measuring any kind of jumps? Are you looking at anything like that? What are you finding?
So we actually just kind of, so here at Lindenwood, as you know, like we have the EPNL, which is Exercise Performance Nutrition Lab. And one of my former teammates when I was on the team 500,000 years ago does a lot of research with us out of there. And we do jumps every Friday. And, force plates, we look at
Pat, right?
Pat. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dr. Patrick Hardy. And he does a lot of data and does a lot of data collection. And we, performance indicators of jump are really important to us. We found over the past 3-4 years of doing this that, like, shockingly, your best jumpers are your best weightlifters. And like that, we would try to do correlations between their jumps to their cleans, so their snatches, their totals, their jerks, and all encompassing, my best jumpers are my best weightlifters. And I think, you were talking about football and the cleans and stuff. I think there's something to be looked at as, I think it's more important for sports that utilize the Olympic lifts, maybe not to push them as heavy, to have more transferal over to jump or like athleticism on the field. But in the weightlifting world, you got to kind of swim deeper into those waters, because I want my athletes to jump higher and run faster and squat more, but in the end, it's snatch and clean and jerk. So whatever performance indicators that we can do to get them better at snatch and clean and jerk is what we do versus how we train to get them to jump higher. Now there is that correlation between my best jumpers are my best weightlifters, but the jumps that we monitors a lot of things, power when they leave the monitor, to their hang time, to their landing force, to how long they dip, to how quick they are concentrically. So there's a lot of things that we look at, and I monitor that data just for like insight because a program, everything is snatch and clean and jerk. So when people don't think they snatch and clean and jerk more, they think they're a failure. But if these other metrics are going up, through a DEXA or, fat-free mass or jump height or faster acceleration time, like those are still showing ergogenic benefits to what we're doing. And just because it didn't show its pretty face on snatch and clean and jerk doesn't mean that we're not getting better. Snatch and clean and jerk is they're the main things we focus on, but it it doesn't always show up in the snatch and clean and jerk. It can show up in other areas. So we still do monitor those things to be like, you are still getting better objectively in this data, which it may not have transferred over to clean and jerk yet, but I bet it will at a different time in the season when we emphasize snatch and clean and jerk more. If you have somebody who is training and none of their data is going up, that might be when you can take a step back and say, okay, let's change other things because you're flat on everything, which kind of points to you're overtrained or you're pushing a little bit too much somewhere. So there's a lot of different things that we look at. Force plates is very big for us.
Are you guys training? How much jump training are you doing?
Like teaching them how to jump.
Uh, how much jumping plyometrics do you guys do?
A good amount.
Yeah.
When we're postseason, off season, not so much.
Yeah.
We're just trying to put volume and stress and a lot of repetitive movements just to build kind of a foundation. So as we kind of transition to a strength, general strength, or a tempo strength, or a power phase to then kind of a peak, as the wave goes up closer to snatch and clean and jerk, the more emphasis my program gets on jumping and bounding. So when you're doing your general stuff, it's not very much, it's not really of importance. I don't even have them do plyometrics then. But then as we climb, the emphasis on plyometrics also climb.
Yeah. Thinking about those athletes that your best jumpers are best weightlifters and your best weightlifters are your best jumpers. Do you see their numbers climb together? Do you see other people's numbers fall together?
It's funny you say that because Dr. Patrick Hardy, who does all the data for us, last year when we won nationals, we had all this jump data, creatine data, training data, tonnage that I did with my athletes. And we jumped them days leading up to their peak performance at University Nationals. I think we started 4 days out. So 4 days out, 3 days out, 2 days out, 1 day out, 0 days out of when you compete of your jump data. And we didn't really see a correlation between when they were ready to snatch and clean and jerk. Their jumps didn't follow the same trend. So that was kind of a record scratch, we're like, whoa, like well, what does this mean? And it wasn't really confidently correlated. However, this year we did the same thing with some minor tweaks, and it was very positively correlated. Where you see like if you're going to draw like a line, both were kind of going up at the same rate, which is traditionally what you would think would happen because with the taper, the drop of tonnage, the drop of volume, you're going to super compensate. And we really kind of had to sit down uh at the end of the year this year and be like, this is like opposing stuff that we found. But the more we kind of got into the weeds of what time we were jumping was at a different time of day that we normally jumped. And it was very early in the morning, very far out from the time that a lot of my athletes had A, fully waken up, and then B, actually did compete. So there was these other variables that we were really looking at. We were just looking at the objective data, but then we started pulling like, oh, these other little things probably had more of an impact on showing kind of a flat line of jump data when this year we realized that and kind of controlled for it to not necessarily change the protocol of the 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0 days out, but when they did it, where they did it, and making sure that it was later into the day, closer to their competition time than it was just everybody at this flat number.
Yeah.
So we kind of had to look at other things that we didn't really look at the first time we did this. So if you would have asked me that last year, I would said I didn't see a really good correlation between jump height, jump metrics, and snatch and clean and jerk. But this year it was, I mean, it was almost like because we would have people who weren't jumping come down to the area that everybody was jumping, and people were popping off with PRs on their jump data, 3 days out, and then it was like, okay, and now I'm 2 days out, and then I just PR my once PR. Like we were doing that left and right, guys and
Yeah.
girls, and I remember looking at Pat like, this is the polar opposite of what we found last year. But I really think of when we were doing it was a huge, huge component, which makes you think about a lot of things.
Yeah. If you look at some of the historical data, especially from the olden times when travel was a bigger pain in the butt, if you would look at East Coast teams, well, I guess for you, East Coast teams traveling to West Coast, if they played night games, they'd get their butts handed to them because think about like a slower airplane or like a long bus ride or whatever, train or whatever. They're so out of sorts and off of their circadian rhythms is that they were just cold. They were supposed to be at that same hour. They're supposed to be sleeping in their bed at home. And if they were competing, the gamblers figured it out and they would made a killing on it, just knowing that when East Coast traveled to West Coast, they would take a beating because they were just their body was ready for bedtime and everything like that. So there's something to be said for those circadian rhythms. And then there's a couple of gals that got like a Nobel Prize a few years ago, I think. If your circadian rhythms are some highs and lows throughout the day or just maybe a 24-hour scan, there's something called ultradian rhythms, which are like minute little rhythms throughout your circadian rhythms. I don't have a Nobel Prize in it, but anyways.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that.
But and they found it in like small organisms. Is that basically if you are an organism that has Earth-based ancestors, and if your species, whether it's a complex human being or some tiny little like microbe, you probably have these like ultradian rhythms. They found even for things that like lived like one day or like these little tiny microbes we're talking about. If your lifespan is like one day or just short period of time, they found there's still some sort of like patterning. When you talk about this is just a very subjective question because I have a lot of coaches who are convinced that weightlifting drives athleticism and that we're going to win more games if we do weightlifting. And we can talk more about that soon. Big James, like he came to Lindenwood like maybe like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, James Tice.
I tested him on his entry. You know how they do those physicals at the beginning of the year?
Uh-huh.
He did a force plate jump. And he's a thick, he is and was a thick boy. And he stood up there and just popped off a big old jump. And when he landed, everybody in the room just turned around. They're like, what was that? But
Yeah.
so, I think his career turned out pretty well. So,
Yeah,
but
he's actually still with me. He's one of my
okay.
master's students now.
Good for him. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's popping off a big jump as soon as he stepped on campus.
Oh yeah. Actually, shout out to James. I'm pretty sure he has the school record in Newtons for the most weight in Newton's mid-thigh pull.
Sounds about right. That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's another thing we tested. We were talking about earlier about like objective data. There's a mid-thigh pull that's on a force plate where you just maximally pull.
yep.
That also kind of puts my lifters in a range of like, are you a strength person or are you a jumper person? And James is heavily on the strength side. He's a big, strong boy. Oh, we're moving.
Got one.
Yeah.
Got one right there. So
Yep.
we're familiar. All right. You mentioned creatine numbers. They're Pat testing you guys' creatine levels? Are you guys aren't NCAA, so can you give them creatine or how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah. We actually just last year we did a 9-month creatine study that we're still kind of processing the data, and there's not much research out there that suggests timing of creatine really matters. It's kind of just like
Yeah,
it's just like
get it in you.
get it in you, keep your stores.
Yeah.
But kind of the how we like sold it and pushed it to the IRB is like, but a lot of the creatine studies have only focused in this small amount of time. So if we do a study drawn out over a longer period, you might see some separation between what is more ideal before workout, after training kind of thing. So it was also a really good outlet to get my lifters free creatine. It's because they basically were separated into two groups, and you had a creatine jug and you had a placebo jug, but you didn't know which one was which. So everybody took it, jug A and jug B. Everybody took jug A at the same time and everybody took jug B at the same time. And then afterwards, we found out based on a lot of different things that we looked at which group performed better and which group performed not as well.
Can you share the like the dosage?
So I want to say it was, I think the dosage was 3 grams daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff going right now where people are doing like 10 times that and they're looking at all the cognitive benefits. And
yeah,
I had a neuroscientist on here. Shout out to Dr. Kamal Ashraf. And she uses creatine as part of her recovery protocol for people with TBIs. And then she also gives it to like her 11 and 9-year-old daughters just for all of the many health benefits. So
yeah. I know there's a lot of research coming out about that, about like cognitive function, and it's usually in like large quantities where they really start seeing like the benefit, like you said, like way more than that. But I think there's a lot of things coming out now because the old timers, everybody used to talk about like a loading phase of creatine.
Yeah.
And this 5 to 7 day protocol of 3 grams 4 times daily or whatever it was, 3 grams 5 times daily or something, because I think you had to get up to 20. But a lot of people aren't even doing the loading protocol anymore. They're just kind of jumping straight to the maintenance phase, and it shows to be enough of an abundance to keep your stores full and topped off, where I don't think even a lot of people are doing the loading phase. But yeah, it's cool stuff.
Kind of sidestepping from the programming conversation and some of the physiology conversation. I've was kind of fortunate to kind of eavesdrop on some of your coaching conversations with your athletes. So I thought you did a good job of, I'll call it the personnel side. Do you have anything that sort of guides your? And you talk about the end of season. You're like, go be a human, go do other things. So do you have any like guiding principles or like subject matter that you return to with these young people that you're coaching? That's not just about their front squat or their deadlift or anything like that.
Yeah, you mean it just about about being balanced. This everybody in the weightlifting world, Instagram, always focuses on those big snatch and clean and jerk numbers, but all the higher level athletes are not just doing that, but you don't see it so much because that's not fancy, that's not pretty. So just because people don't see it now, they think they don't do it. So I really try to return to pretty simple human things when we're out of season, like as much as I can. Um, I think for the longest time, that's why when people recruit for sports, you look for multiple sport athletes because you get an overall development and not just a one trick pony, like one side of the coin thing.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be very beneficial if like an endurance runner, transition to weightlifting, but wrestling, throwers, jumpers, gymnastics, all those are kind of in that range of what is good to be weightlifting. But weightlifters, I think one of the things that I really try to emphasize with the new kids coming in is you're not weightlifting all the time, snatch and clean and jerk. You're still pushing other variables when you're further out of season. So I really try to get them to maintain a balance in their training. And, because this sport can be boring too, man. If you're just doing 5 years of snatch and clean and jerk, like, holy smokes, like, you got to kind of add a little spice in there that is still going to get you better. Maybe not in the immediate present time, but is going to be uh, like savings for your future. You're investing to become the better athlete down the road by doing these skills that aren't directly tied to snatch and clean and jerk, but they might keep you healthier when you do get back to snatch and clean and jerk.
And then I've also heard you like do like round table, like gather up, let's have like a family meeting basically. Do you have like certain subject matter that you kind of go over with them? Just from like a coaching standpoint, maybe it's like sleep or nutrition or stress management. Do you have anything that you talk them through, just like going further down that pipeline?
I All of those.
Yeah.
I'm I'm pretty good off the hip kind of thing. Like I don't have like a structure of like on this week and on this day we're going to talk about this. I kind of just feel the vibes of what is happening in the weight room. What am I seeing that maybe not just one person is doing, but multiple people are doing. And it's something that I want to bring up or like shine some light on it and be like, this is not going to get you to success. So the next day, or if it's like very prevalent, I just stop practice and I'm like, everybody come over here right now. We're going to talk about this
Yeah.
because I want to address it then and there. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. It could be something good that I'm like, this person is killing it because of this. Everybody needs to see this now. stop practice, let's talk about it. But those are like usually when it's like this has to be done immediately. Majority of the time is I'm just kind of thinking about what I'm seeing, what people are talking to me about, commonalities between these four athletes just said the same thing to me today. Like, what is that? So the next day we're going to talk about it. And if let's just say, I don't know, they're gassed, overly gassed, more than they should. So then the next day leading up to practice, I can kind of zoom out and be like, what is this? Why is this happening? And I can look at all my data, or I can just think like, oh, it's midterms week. So then I can, do a powwow with my team and be like, Sally, James, Donna, and Larry just said these same things to me yesterday, and they did not talk about it together. Let's think about why this is happening. And then I bring, could it be midterms? So I kind of just try to shine light on it to be able, one, to like reinforce that it's not weird that you might be feeling off this week. I'm hearing this from a lot of people. So I just try to get everybody together to talk about things, because if I put it on the schedule to do, it's probably going to like fall through the cracks. But if I do it right then and there or the very next day, like I don't let it get lost in my calendar. I want to do this now. So some people probably may not agree with that because I might mess with the structure or the flow of training. But I've had really good feedback on just doing it. If I see it, I call it, because it may not get to you, but it may get to this person. Or somebody could go, ah, crap, like I am feeling that way too. Maybe it is because it's midterm. So it just kind of it it also opens up the gates for more people to do that, where it's not just coach always doing that. They're not going to stop practice, but they could pull somebody aside and be like, I'm going through midterms too. Like I am crapping the bed as well. It's okay. So I try to kind of foster that environment.
What's going on? You got a new facility you opened up, a little side quest going on. What's happening with?
I got a little side quest, man.
This is Lionheart Weightlifting, or what's the facility named?
Yeah, so Lionheart Weightlifting is the gym that I just opened. But we are part of a much bigger facility that's called Ready to Live Wellness. And we've kind of become part of this like wellness collective where essentially you get a lot of small businesses under one roof, but all in the fitness industry. Cycling, breathing, contrast training, CrossFit, weightlifting, bodybuilding, powerlifting, meditation, chiropractic is all under the same. Now, each one of these things is their own business, but we're all under this wellness collective. So it's kind of crazy. Just it was one of those things that just kind of started happening. Like I never really saw myself being a gym owner. I just kind of wound up doing it. It quick story is it actually started as a fundraiser for Lindenwood. I noticed there was a lot of hype around college weightlifting, but if you weren't a college weightlifter, I couldn't really help you. So there was these youth and these high school and right after college and seniors and masters that I love weightlifting, but I couldn't really tailor them because they weren't between 18 and 25. So I'm like, crap. So how do I do this? So I actually started it at Lindenwood, where I started a club team where I would train and coach people outside of my collegiate competitive team, outside of those hours, using Lindenwood's facility. And it kind of grew to the point where I then rented out space at a local CrossFit gym. Shout out CrossFit O'Fallon, that would let me give them a fee to then start doing that at a different location. And I actually made a post on Instagram, me and my business partner. We made a post of kind of like dog and CrossFit on like their Olympic movements and saying like, hey, CrossFitters, you guys suck at these Olympic lifts. You should come see us, because we'll help you like that. Well, it like took off, and these guys from Ready to Live Wellness, it was Ready to Live CrossFit at that time, reached out to us and said, hey, we freaking love this. Like, can you come and do some seminars at our place? Sure. So we started doing these seminars at this Ready to Live CrossFit, and they were part of this building that at the time that we were doing the seminars, they just kept buying more chunks of this building until they have the whole building. And they were like, we want to bring a weightlifting area to the St. Louis area in this facility that we just bought, and we want you guys to do it if you're willing to do it. And I was like, holy smokes, like this is a lot to think about. Like, I'm still head coach here at like Lindenwood. And, we talked early on, 2 kids and stuff that are young. Like, this is a lot to like bite off. And we sat down and had lots of conversations and got into the details. And it basically was just like something I couldn't say no to, because now this passion project of being able to make my own weightlifting team and spread weightlifting to the St. Louis area at all levels became not only a business and a way to make money at, but was a way for me to reach more weightlifters and not just focus on the college scene. So I feel like I like blinked my eyes, man, and it
Yeah.
was like boom, and I'm opening my own gym. Like, what do I do? Like, where do I start? Yeah. So now here I am since like February is when we
Okay.
kind of opened the doors. We did like a grand opening later on, but when we actually started was early February, man. So now here we are, what, 4 months later. I'm
Yeah.
I'm a gym owner.
Sweet. Nice.
Yeah.
Uh, Perfect timing. From what I understand, women who are like 9 months pregnant love it. Love it when their husbands do that kind of stuff.
It
Um,
was
but
it was rocky.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I know you're a passionate guy, so I know it all comes from the right place, and I trust you guys will be uh, successful and help out a lot of people.
Yeah, I hope so.
Speaking of those kids, um, how are you gonna what are you gonna do different than the neighbor dad down the street? What do you do with some kids to help them be as healthy as possible, to help them grow into great athletes, to help them be strong? You know a thing or two about the human body. What's the goal with these kids?
As far as from like a dad and like a coaching and like fitness background, is I think just exposure and get them started. Um, we kind of touched on it earlier of like everybody's so meticulous of like you have to have a program and you have to have a protocol and you have to do baseball 5 times a week and you have to do these select sports to make anything, and everybody's so dialed in on like the timing and the specifics, where sometimes people are like, I just don't want to do that, which is fine. I think you just need to start. Like, if 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 you have an interest in something, try it out. Jump in both feet, man. And even like simple things of like just going to the gym, of just get in there and kind of figure it out. And then you're like, man, I do like this. Now I'm gonna learn a little bit more, or I'm gonna talk to somebody that is trying to learn how to play ping pong. You said ping pong, so that's fresh in my brain. But just go start hitting the ping pong ball. I think just getting exposure and getting out there in the world and trying new things is really what's gonna like set you off for success. The world's a playground, dude. Like just expose them to as many things as you can, and they're gonna like something. They may not like the first or the second thing, but as a dad, like the more stones you can turn over and say, like, is this something you like? I think that's really important, especially at like the developmental stages. It's like looking for worms. If you got 100 stones around and if you just turn one stone over and you're like, oh, there's not a worm under it, like I'm done. Like, no, like turn all those things over. I bet you're gonna find a worm under there somewhere. Like, start just doing things, and you don't have to be great at it. Like, you don't have to just try and do the things that you're gonna be the best at. Like, try the things maybe you're not so good at. You might stumble upon something that just because you're not good at it doesn't mean you're not passionate about it.
Very specific question. I've done one arm snatches that they're easy to teach, everything like that. A variation I've come across recently that I have not coached yet. I've played around with it just a little bit personally. With a barbell, single leg cleans. Do you guys play with this ever? Have you executed that?
Single leg cleans.
Single leg cleans.
So
I have.
you start from the ground.
Well, a hang
Okay.
position. Hang position would probably be ideal.
Okay. So you start at the hip and you like hinge down with one foot behind you, like off the ground, and then you explode and catch.
Yeah,
I can
I have.
honestly say I have never done that, taught that, or coached that. Not saying that it doesn't have merit, but I
Um,
nope.
do you know the name Mike Boyle?
Yeah, he was a strength coach big in hockey. He was a single leg guy, right?
He's still around. He's still around, and he's been
Yeah.
putting some. He's been posting on it a little bit social media wise.
Okay.
And you do it, and I haven't. I don't have a philosophy or decision on it just yet because I'm only like I've really only like farted around with it a couple of times. But if I could find a way to make it feel right and be productive, I'm kind of excited about it.
Okay.
I don't know if there's something there if it's for me or if I'm gonna let it go. So just,
Okay.
the way you're talking about trying new things, I'm like I've been going to weight rooms regularly for 25 years. 20 of that has been uh, as a adult choosing my own training, and hopefully somewhere around 15 years of that has been doing respectful training.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm like 2 weeks into seeing his videos and reading some of his postings about it, and I'm thinking like that could be something. Like
Yeah.
that's the argument, is that we run on single legs and like all this other stuff. So
Yeah. And I think I wouldn't be opposed to doing it. I didn't even know that was like an option in the bank. You know what I mean? That I
it,
never really thought about doing it.
I've done however many reps of single arm snatches and kettlebell snatches and I'm like, why? How did I miss the single leg version? And the
Yeah.
single leg dumbbell cleans are um, more convenient. I'll say that, but
Yeah.
that's interesting. It's
Okay.
different, but yeah. Um, what's one or two things that's holding back most of the people you work with? That could be form, that could be mindset, that could be their protein intake. I don't know.
In in fitness generally, or like in the weightlifting world?
Either or, whatever comes to mind.
Um, in the weightlifting world, I I I would say mindset. Um, in the sense of what what is working hard in weightlifting, I don't think is what people typically think. Um, when I say working hard, people go, okay, I'm going to get to heavyweight and I'm going to try to move it as fast as possible and I'm going to try to make the rep. But in weightlifting, working hard is like being meticulous and like focused on the little things and working relentlessly on the things that are falling apart and like refusing to give in and not just like skip it or not worry about it because that's going to hurt you down the road. So people want to ignore the things that they suck at. Like if I'm terrible at above knee block power snatch, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to do that. Oh, I don't want to do that." Well, why don't you want to do that? Well, I'm bad at it. Well, yeah, but you're only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. So like there's probably some merit that we need to look at this and we need to figure out like why do you suck or have you just not done it enough? And is it going to be worth it to be put towards the main movements that'll help the main movements get better? So the mindset of hard work is not I'm just going to come in and be a dog and try hard and lift weight because once you get to not even high end weightlifting, but moderate level weightlifting, that's expected. That's what everybody is doing. So what are you going to do that is going to be hard work that's going to set you aside from everybody else? Because if everybody at the middle to advanced to expert tier is already doing that, like that's not really going to move the needle for you. Like what is your mindset to working hard and training that is going to set you aside? And the hard work comes from outside of the weight room too. How, like we talked about, I forget his name, Rock.
Rock was with the Rams. Yep.
Yeah. Your job is to be ready for training. So what hard work are you going to do, whether it's just prioritizing your free time, or are you going to sleep in too late and miss breakfast? Because then that's not going to set you up for a good training day. That's working hard. Your mindset of choosing not to stay up late and play video games because you have to get to bed at a certain time to get to breakfast, to go to class, and then be ready for training. So you're going to sacrifice that a little bit in order to put in another training day. That's the mindset that people miss. It's not really that big of a deal if, one of 30 days you stay up a little later and you don't sleep well. But if you do it 4 times a week, 4 times out of the 5 days that we train, you're not at the best that you can be. So you're only giving your best one day, but there are other people that are giving their best all 5 days. That's what working hard is in the weightlifting world. So the mindset shift of like a job interview, everybody says, I work hard, I love what I do, and I always show up early.
I work too hard, I care too much, and sometimes I can be too invested in my job.
Well, yeah, so does everybody else. But what does that actually mean? Like you work hard, explain that to me. What is working hard? And people usually miss the mark as to like what hard work is. It's not just slapping colors on a bar. It's all the other things that you have to get your mindset and tell yourself that you're going to do these things in addition to showing up and training hard. And that's I think the part that
Yeah.
people are missing. Like doing the hard things. Being okay doing the hard things.
There's I can't help but like bring up another saying I've heard recently, and I'll butcher this one too, I bet. All the success you're not getting is from all the hard work you're not doing.
Oh man, I love those sayings. I got to keep writing these down.
It's something like that. It's something like all the success you're not getting is from all the hard work that you're not doing.
I have a million whiteboards up in my office, and I'd say about 50% of what's on my boards are just sayings like that.
What is what things are going on for you in the future, and maybe for the industry in the future. You see any changes coming in the pipeline?
Um,
And you just told us all about all the changes in your life, the kid,
yeah.
the new company. So if that's not a great question, we can skip.
Well, no, I mean, I would say like as far as the industry, um, the bar is really getting raised every year as far as, the level of athletes that I'm recruiting in, as far as the level of athletes that I'm seeing younger and younger and younger. Um, back in my day, um, weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting wasn't really well known in the US. It wasn't like a well-known sport. And then Olympic hype and CrossFit kind of happened, and it's really growing. And I mean, me, like I kind of just fell into it because I happened to go to Lindenwood and I had a coach recruit me, and I had only casually done the Olympic list for other sports, but the pool of people was so small then. Then now it's really growing that even from when I was an assistant coach here to now, the caliber of people that I'm reaching out to that have interest in my program is growing every year. So I mean, the focus and attention that USA weightlifting is putting out there in the US. I mean, colleges are coming up every single year that have programs, and high schools are way more than that you usually only saw in like southern states. And there's like this weird hub in like Minnesota, Iowa area, but now it is starting to happen at the high school scene and the college scene all over the nation. So I mean, uh there is a lot of interest and focus happening on weightlifting, which is great. Um, me personally, like I said, I kind of opened a gym. I'm getting my feet wet, kind of getting into the remote coaching thing. Again, I'm just trying to get more outreach because originally I was this college weightlifting guy. Then I kind of went to St. Louis coaching weightlifting guy. Now I'm trying to like expand into the deeper realms of helping people learn and get better at weightlifting where I've never even met them in person. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like the newest thing that I'm since opening a gym. There's also people that have reached out to me like, "Hey, I'm in Nebraska," like, and I'm like, "Oh, how I don't, God, I'm not sure how I can help you." You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But like, then it was like this light bulb kind of went off that like maybe I can help them. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like the next fish I'm trying to fry is kind of into the remote coaching world, which is a whole nother thing, man.
Yeah. And I'll go on to what questions should I ask you that I have not asked you?
What questions should you ask me that you haven't asked? Um, I think I think talking about like the mental fatigue of the sport. Um, we kind of like briefly touched on that. Burnout
Uh,
is big in the sport. And I think some people are like a unit and they can stay focused on just snatch and clean and jerk. I was not that way, and I think majority of people are not that way. So kind of dabbling in different realms of fitness when you don't have a meet coming up immediately, makes you more well-rounded and develop patterns that we don't always do in weightlifting, but also it keeps you sane, man. Like try sprinting, try fartlek training, try doing so many calories burned on a rower. I said it before, for God's sakes, get in the transverse plane, do some rotational movements, do some single leg power cleans. I'd have to get a little more familiar with that before I like program that, but beating the monotony of the sport is a real thing because it's going to keep you hungrier when you come back to snatch and clean and jerk because you haven't been doing 12 months of it. You've probably kept it in the realm or kind of kept it in the workout, but it's not like you're just pushing sets after reps after percentages on it. Like you're kind of doing it, but then you're moving on to like a more important thing for that phase of training. Athlete burnout is something I deal with every year on my team, and I could almost like draw a chart of like when people's morales are high and when they're flat and when they're low, and it's like consistent every year with multiple athletes of mine. I kind of have to talk off the ledge of being like, you just need to switch up training a little bit. You don't need to like quit weightlifting. Like,
Yeah.
you just went through a peak and you're not even a human anymore. You're a freaking weightlifter and everything else sucks because all your chips were in the weightlifting. Like, let's scramble your brain a little bit and, let's try this other thing and kind of reignite that fire. And everybody deals with that, man, no matter how good you are. Like, the levels at which people deal with it is very different, but I'm not going to say any names, but there was one of my athletes this year where I wrote her like a very general, basic, fun program that just got her out of weightlifting mindset. She wanted something written down because she's very like she likes guidance and directive, but it was like stuff that she's never done. And I like sent it to her and she's like, I don't know what any of these movements are. And I'm like, great, like let's learn about them. And I still keep constant touch with majority of my athletes, but she's having a great time again. And now all of a sudden, she's excited to get back here in the fall. And it's like, I don't know if this weird movement it's probably going to help you down the road for weightlifting, but I can't say. But you are hungry now again, when last year you were like starved. Like that's a win in itself, whether it directly helps you or not. Like mentally it did help you. So bringing it back to what you were talking about, I think it's important to not just beat a dead horse and keep doing snatch and clean and jerk singles, snatch and clean and jerk singles all the time. Like, life's fun, man. Play around with some things and you might discover something that you never thought would work, might really work for you.
Yeah, big time. I could list several things that I thought were dumb, and now I swear by them. So
yeah,
your philosophy changes as you get a little bit of experience under your belt.
Yeah.
Hey, really appreciate your time, your expertise. If listeners want to get a hold of you, what's the best method for that?
Probably the best way would just be reach out on Instagram. We try to blow up the Instagram. It's just Lindenwood Weightlifting. I run that Instagram, and some of my captains help me.
Yeah.
You could email me just at tcrain@lindenwood.edu, but majority of people don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Everything's social media. So, if you want to get in touch with me, whether it's recruiting wise or weightlifting or just generally, I would say reach out to the Instagram because it's pinging on my phone always. So that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Yeah, cool. Very good. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome, sir.
Yeah, great talking to you.
Likewise, man. It's always great to see you.
Thank you for listening to the Winning Wellness Podcast. Please keep in mind that all views expressed within the show are not a reflection of any universities or organizations that I may be affiliated with. If you have any questions or suggestions for future shows, please reach out through Instagram, where I can be found with the title name of Mitch Schwartzman.